I'm Janvi Kurapati. I'm one of the co-founders of Ediso. At Ediso, we're building a learning platform where AI creates structured learning paths and experts step in when things get complex. Today, I have Shri Hegde. With 10 plus years of experience in software engineering, Shri is currently a senior data engineer, an airflow champion recognized by Astronomer, a volunteer at Women Applying AI, and chapter lead for the New Jersey chapter of Women in Data. She's also actively involved in Apache Airflow open source community, and she is a speaker, writer, editor for various publications on Medium and Substack. She also spends a lot of time mentoring and building community. So Shri, it's really great to have you on. I'd love to chat about what it actually takes to get into data engineering, but most importantly, what does it take to be a good one, with AI reshaping this role significantly? So let's start with your background first. So you started in test automation and moved into AI and data engineering. Tell me more about that transition.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Janvi. First of all, thanks for this opportunity to share my views. Coming to a question where you asked about my transition, in my case, things happened a lot organically because like you mentioned, I had started my career with test automation, moved up the ladder till becoming an estate. And throughout my career as test automation engineer and an estate, there were a lot of factors that influenced my decision of moving towards data because I had worked on assisting some folks in my previous organization with data anonymization. I had built ADF pipelines before even I understood how the data works. But since I was assisting somebody, I got to see the challenges first, and then I understood how they are solving it. So I kind of saw all of this from a close viewpoint, and that I think served as a background for me getting into Astronomer eventually as an estate again. And there I got to see the challenges that involves with the data more closely and what kind of problems are they trying to solve with Apache Airflow, how data orchestration can be a very important factor to consider when you're designing your data pipelines, what are DAGs, and these things started getting a lot clearer to a point where I wanted to get myself certified because I wanted to check how much I know. And then I took a couple of certifications and then eventually applied for Apache Airflow Championship and then got selected. And it kind of organically transitioned into that role. And I'm now at a point where I realize that I'm doing a lot more of data related work than the test automation part. So it's just about rebranding myself into the right label which I'm working instead of getting called something else and working on something else differently. So that is where I transitioned. But after this journey happened and I joined Women in Data as a volunteering effort, or I speak to a couple of communities related to data, and I met a lot of women and other like members who has also transitioned like organically in the similar way, but their backgrounds are completely different. Some people are from DevOps, some people are from again manual testing or automation testing, some people are from completely different backgrounds like nursing and medical, trying to get into data engineering because they're good at it and they're really good at it. The discussions kind of made me understand that data is very welcoming by nature because everybody understands data related to their domain. It's just that when you switch domains, you need to put an effort to understand how the nature of data can result in making decisions to create business impact and things like that. But otherwise, if you understand your set of data properly, domain wise, maybe if I have to put a pin at it, it could be like banking and finance. If I understand how banking data is, it's easy for me to bring my experience around that domain. And then if I'm switching my domain to say healthcare, in that case, probably I need to do some amount of revisions in terms of my understanding, in terms of the kind of layout that I've spread out for data pipelines and designing everything, and the foundations becomes common factor here. But the data by nature can be a lot different, and that kind of understanding is what needs to be inculcated eventually. So yeah.
Yeah, so careers are very nonlinear and full of transitions. So, with all your experience so far, what are some of the areas that individuals struggle with when they start in data or when they go to a new domain?
Yeah, the struggles could be much different, like because it comes in flavors when you talk about data engineering problems. One thing that I see commonly, if I have to speak in terms of generic observations that I've seen, is that everybody wants to catch up with the modern tech stack. I have said this before other places as well, that people tend to miss the fundamentals a lot more. There are a couple of tech stacks that you need to know really well before you try and jump to something bigger and trendy or catchy. It is probably SQL and one of the programming languages that you're comfortable with is a must. I can't imagine my life without SQL and Python in data engineering. And then PySpark as well. If you're working with Spark or Databricks, you might require PySpark as well. And there could be a lot more. Like if I start to label, there is really a long list, but it can follow after you have understood your fundamentals really well. Do you know to do all the transformations with the programming language and SQL? Then you can choose uh, if you want to use dbt, or do you want to discuss about the trade-offs between which tool to use, or you should be able to express buy versus build, and then which tool should you use, why, batch versus streaming, and all of these decisions can be listed with the help of AI as well today. But if you are able to argue on it and tell people why do you want to go with that selection, I think that requires a lot of foundation, and people kind of totally miss it and just jump into whatever is being endorsed a lot outside. So that is one of the struggles that I see, because it impacts later, right? You probably get to know the tool very much in depth, but then you don't know, what if I cannot use this tool? What other tool should I use? For that, you need to go back to basics and see what problem was this solving, and what is the problem we have in hand, and why are we not able to choose this tool anymore? So, or maybe other tools are better in the market. So that kind of decision requires a lot of fundamentals to be covered, and most of them miss it, results in burnout, and yeah, that's not in a good place to be.
So, if I understand it correctly, it sounds like instead of focusing on the tool by itself, you suggest that there has to be a deeper understanding of how data works and then develop that intuition or that thinking. So, how can one go about that?
Yeah, you need to understand your organization first. Like, where is your organization coming from? What data does it have? What domain does it belong to? And what kind of problems is it trying to answer? Um, Especially when there are like dashboards presented to the management, or if there is somebody using it, the end user who is your customer. So understand your customer. That kind of brings me to business logic. The emphasis over the business logic, along with the logic that you use to build your tech stack, and then it'll answer your question itself. Like, you will know for this problem, if there is this solution out there which is being solved extensively by this tool, probably I need to go learn it a little more, not in depth, maybe at least to understand, does this solve my problem? Because you are very much aware of what are you trying to solve, and then you go looking out for solutions. You check if you can do it with the help of whatever you already know. But if that's not the case, then you might need to go and look for what other tools are available in the market. These days it is not too tough for you to research, especially even the Google search has got AI mode, and it will list you everything possible. Just try and understand at a high level if these things are the right solution for me, and then if it feels like a right solution, then maybe go in depth and then try to build a POC, try to discuss it with your peers and understand, and that brings a lot of learning as well. Maybe that's not a it might not be a best solution that you come up with the moment you do a POC. There could be mistakes, there could be challenges. Get comfortable to get embarrassed in front of people, especially your peers, because they are going to tell you something informative, right? If they are not agreeing with you, that can act as a blessing to you, because then you will bring your critical thinking out and try and analyze how that works. You try to explain them, you're trying to convince yourself as well that the tool is a better choice for you. If not, it's always better to understand what other options are there in the market and then go with it. So now you know two tools. Next time you solve a problem, you know beforehand what two tools are available already, and you've already worked with it. So it kind of develops with time, and probably developing a judgment might be coming from that point of view. Just practice a lot and make mistakes, not in production, but at least as much as possible in your personal projects. Building an end-to-end pipeline hands-on is also a very good approach, in my opinion. Tutorials can anyway help you learn the concepts. Just absorb the concepts, try to do it on your own. Tutorials are mostly perfect. They'll have everything figured out and everything will look happy-go-lucky, but it might not be the case when you try hands-on. And they are also somewhere expecting you to write hands-on and fail so that you can come back and revise the topics. So you kind of understand the tool completely, tool and the concept better. That's a good way to develop this kind of judgment, in my opinion.
Great. So I want to switch gears a little bit. Now,
Mhm.
I found you on Substack, and I loved reading your posts because they focus a lot on that thinking and what could go wrong. So one thing that really caught my eye is you wrote about you wrote your quote in your exact words was, "Don't tell me you can't build." That we're now in the "don't tell me you can't build" era. Apps building through apps, through conversations, and but you also said that you mentally labeled a lot of them as hackathon apps. So tell
Yeah.
me more about that.
Yeah, that's exactly, you kind of gave me a right link to my previous question as well. That's exactly what I meant. So, to give you an example, I always wanted my portfolio or a website that is there in place because I was not too comfortable sharing my resumes, which had my phone number in it. So, I would be very mindful about whom am I sharing my resume. But handing over resume to every person with phone number or without it, managing two versions felt a little too much to me. So I was like, I need something solid, like a link which I can share. So then I went to GitHub profile. You can make a README and then it's just a static page. You don't need to host or anything. You just write down whatever you know and then make it a little presentable and that can act like a profile. It shows much better than a static resume. So that's where I went. And then eventually I felt that this is a lot static. It would be better if we can have some animation. Now I come from a computer science background back in college. So I have understanding of HTML and CSS. But not one day did I call myself a UI UX developer or anything close to that because I knew there are experts out there and they know a lot more than that. And things might have a lot evolved than what I had learned it the last time. So I wouldn't have dared to, go ahead and build a website of my own by thinking I can figure this out. And I thought, I mean, I would take a lot of time if I tried to do it with whatever little I knew about UI UX designing or developing. So, but now we are in the era where I just had to put a very effective prompt in Claude and then ask it to, give me a website by Jekyll. I knew what I was doing, so I was planning to do with Jekyll Pages. It kind of gives you a static web hosting. It's a blog friendly kind of a page. So I mentioned what all tech stack I want to involve. Like it should be animated this way. I need this, and every detail was given to Claude, and then I gave a proper prompt and the web pages were ready. And I wanted to host it for free. And I asked it, where can I do it? It gave the steps for me to follow it as well. And now I have a website. And it is very much animated. It's not something which I would have done on my own if it was left for me and not for AI. And that made me write that article which you just mentioned, where I had written in detail how did I build my website without knowing anything and with the help of Claude. But now it's not that I don't know anything about it. I had my fundamentals strong. So if there was any slighter tweaks that I had to make, I could go to the code and fix it myself. If there was not everything did I need to prompt there, but majorly, at least 90-95% of it was built with Claude. The 5%, if I had to make changes, I didn't need to rely on Claude, but I tried to fix it on my own. There were a few mistakes that happened as well. Few things didn't show up. Few images where I don't know, it was not showing up the right format and stuff. API calls, a couple of them failed, and that was understandable. I had that knowledge. That's where I come from, fundamentals being stronger, right? If you know to do that, you don't need to develop a whole thing on your own. But it is still possible today. It wouldn't have been possible like a couple of years before. So if you're telling me you can't build something at all, that is something which is hard to buy these days because it's possible to start with something at least, if not perfect. There could be some placeholder as well. We are living in that era right now. And the follow-up question was hackathon apps, right? So what do I mean by hackathon apps? These apps are static web pages. If they go wrong, it goes wrong for me. And I can just check it every day. And at max, it might not show up a few fields and I just need to, hide it or fix it off. But think about these kind of apps being done for a production thing, like something that goes real and affects customers. Now, that is not probably suitable, is what I'm thinking. Like, if you don't know anything about something, going to Claude and building a whole app that is required for customers who might, put their data into it, and then that data scales. There could be production issues, and if you have no idea how to fix it, that is something I call as a hackathon app. So it's good for a hackathon for one hour or two till judges come and see and put like marks, and then declare your winner or not. But that going into production is not recommended. So production requires a lot of human in the loop. It requires real expertise. It requires discussions among people on why things are picked up and what should have been picked up instead. Or there needs to be a lot of discussion about designing things in a certain way, what works for us, what doesn't work for us, how the previous ideas had failed, and is this idea similar to the failed ones, how can we improvise, and all of this requires a lot of people there. But for hackathons or personal websites, something that is of very less risk, which can go wrong and won't impact people, then probably it can be relied completely on AI, is what I was trying to say. Because AI itself declares that it can make mistakes, right? If you open Claude or open AI, like if you open ChatGPT or something, the first small prompt that says is ChatGPT can make mistakes or Claude can make mistakes. Verify. So that's what I come from. Like you need to verify whatever you're trying to do, and if you cannot verify, probably that shouldn't go to production. Reviewing each other's code becomes a lot more important these days than more than building as well. Building can be outsourced, but you need to know how to review stuff and tell them what is wrong, what could go wrong. So that's what I meant by hackathon apps.
So this leads me to my next question. So you've also talked about how bad AI pipelines can produce wrong results confidently. So can you walk us through what that actually looks like? Maybe a specific example, a time when something looked right but didn't, and its impact in production.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a production use case where AI went wrong, probably because it's very mindfully built and nobody just outright gives accesses that are very sensitive in production. But wrong output being produced by AI confidently is something which everybody can check it. If they go to any one of the AI mod, like they can use the LLMs and put a prompt about something recent. If the model is trained for like 3-4 years back, it will say this thing doesn't exist at all. For example, if let's say there was a software, open source software, which released a particular feature. Okay, that feature was released, let's say yesterday, and the model that I'm using to ask my prompts and get output has been trained maybe last year. It is still not that old, but it's not yesterday's. So it doesn't know about this feature. And then I say, can you tell me more about this feature which was released by this software or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And then it says, no, I checked the software, this kind of feature doesn't exist. And I'm like, no, it was released yesterday. Can you check now and see? It'll confidently tell you this feature doesn't exist at all. I've checked everywhere. But it is there, right? So that is a small example of, this could be one of the examples, but there are a lot. If you like try and explore a lot of other tools for, you get this chat GPT and Claude or
Mm-hmm.
Perplexity or any other tools like that. If the models are trained for a older time and you're checking about something too new, there is a possibility that it will say I've checked this, but it is not that, I mean, it's not correct or something. Whereas you can go and verify and it would be
Right.
still, wrong. So that's very confidently stating. It can it can lead to silent failures actually in production if you have used it without monitoring it. Then the same thing is going to happen in production as well, which is why there needs to be a human in the loop who reviews things and then modifies the output if required and then sends. So just leaving everything up to AI, giving it the superpower might not be the ideal thing to do in production. Read accesses to some extent is okay, but complete power being handed over to AI might result in this confidently wrong outputs.
Mm-hmm. Switching gears a little bit, and something else that you wrote about, and this is when I thought I should reach out because that's where Ediso wants to have this impact. So you wrote about analysis and analysis paralysis from data abundance, and with so much noise about tools, trends, techniques, how should someone sort through all of that?
Yeah, that is also one more thing. I think that was in the article for 4 years of my observations on AI data. So if you think about it that way, there we are living in a times where there is multiple copies of same data. For For example, if there is a blog that is originally written by someone, three people querying about that blog from different models or different AI prompts can get four separate copies of the same information, and that gets posted somewhere or it's lying around everywhere. And now, if I try to Google about it, I get all of these five things, and it's so hard to understand which one was original, where what should I rely on. And even if not for that, if there are like multiple tools available to solve the same problem, like you asked the first time, right? Like how to know which tool to choose. That
Mhm.
itself is an analysis by earlier there were lack of tools. So even finding one tool was like, okay, we can understand this better, and rest of them we can flexibly do as an in-house development or something. But there are like so much of offerings these days that you need to really understand what do you want and then go for it. So like you mentioned, even for tutorials, there is this term, I think the last time we discussed, you mentioned about tutorial hell, right? Like if you
Yeah.
go check for a topic and you get bombarded with a lot of content about it, and I don't know what's the best way to check which one to go for. Is it the date that says latest posted, or is it the views that it has got, or how do you go about it, right? So that is really challenging. What I do is I have a couple of you can call data influencers or people with whom I kind of have built that kind of trust with their content. Like it connects a lot with me. So if I understand their content a lot better, so I stick to a couple of content creators who do these kind of tutorials and stuff for better clarity. But my first preference would be always to go to documentation and try and explore myself. And obviously, I'm not going to figure it out the first time I check the documentation, because it will be probably at a high level. It might not cover everything that I don't know or I know. So that's when I kind of make mistakes and go looking out for solution, and then I refer to tutorials, kind of check it. I don't complete a tutorial in one sitting, even if I want to. I kind of pause and then go look for something that they say. If they mentioned one pointer that they say you can also do it with this, I'm probably going to stop the video there and try to do it myself with the other way that they mentioned. And then if it doesn't work out, then probably I come back to the tutorial. So completing one tutorial for me, if I want to, takes a very long time. So that's how I deal with it. But I really don't know what's the ideal way to deal with the amount of analysis paralysis that we deal with these
Mhm.
days because of data abundance. So yeah, that's actually a challenge these days, especially.
So let's get practical for a second. One of the most common questions today for anyone at any stage and maybe even every domain out there is, how do I stand out when AI can do so much? So what would you tell them?
Yeah, this is one of the common questions that I get asked at the community as well. Like, what can I do to, make my profile a lot more safer in this era, or what should I learn? So I had brought up this question with one of my mentors or my previous manager, and during the conversation, what I heard is, despite having a lot of AI involved or people being able to figure out stuff these days with the help of AI, the demand for real skills or actual strong fundamentals, or the real skills, actually whoever can figure out things much better even with or without AI, is still in high demand, and people are finding it hard to go look for such talents as well. Everybody these days applies saying that they're an expert, but during the interview they get to know who is actually who has actually understood concepts better, and who can who is the real data engineer or whichever role that they've applied for. That real skills and real kind of what do you call it, the expertise that they have with the role is still in high demand, and all you have to do is practice, understand, make mistakes, and just get better at it, I guess. And yeah, as much as possible, if you can do something that can help the community. For example, open source community is one way where you can kind of contribute and make yourself visible out there. But again, AI committed PRs are something which is a big no-no, because it just wastes reviewers' time. And if they give you a comment, if the reviewer gives you a comment and you don't know what to do about it, then probably that's not helping anybody, right? It's not helping you because you have no idea what got committed. You cannot make use of that comment that you got from the reviewer, because how can you learn when you're not sure what you submitted at all?
Mhm.
So it's better not to do that at all and just practice on yourself. But if you have understood your stuff better and you want to get on the field, probably just trying to solve all these issues on open source communities or open source repos and submitting a genuine PR can actually get a lot of visibility and strength for yourself as well to understand stuff. And then you can get some mentorship as well when you see others PR, how they're. I actually had done this long back before even I submitted my first PR into Apache Airflow. I had this practice of going and checking every other PR that was submitted. Do I understand it or not? Was the first question that I was asking myself, because I'm going to submit something like this, which means the review comments can come up like however the discussions are there. So I need to understand what are people submitting, what counts as a good PR, and what gets merged eventually, how much of them get rejected and closed. All of these to be understood first, and then check the contribution guidelines. And maybe there are Slack community channels as well. You can check with somebody and ask for their guidance, stating that you're committing for the first time, what should I do, and stuff. There are people asking that and actually putting an effort to understand the repo and understand the project requirement and do. I think that wins in the long run compared to typing something and then getting a output and then commit it just for the namesake. Now it shows up here. Maybe it will get merged as well if things are good. If the AI gave you a good output, probably it can get merged too. But what's the point, right? You're going to get judged based on that. You might get work similar to that in future, and you won't know how to do it. So what's the point? So yeah, so you need to know the craft well and understand what you're putting out there in the public as in the name of your work. Just do it only if it is genuine. That I think is a big hallmark of whatever you do, and that's how you stand out.
I actually really love this advice because I think during our research with learners as we're building Ediso, one of the things that came up is what projects do I build or where do I get started? And this advice just hits that point where you don't have to tackle a huge commitment or a huge project. You can go and start answering these small or
Yeah.
responding to these small questions and build that thinking. So so thank you for so much for this. And this is genuinely one of my favorite conversations so far. The way you put it on the impact of AI and or how to develop that thinking. And most
Yeah.
importantly, even though we didn't really intentionally go that way, I think one of the things that I am coming out of this is the active learning aspect, right? Versus just watching, reading tutorials, but not actually putting them into practice. So I think that's going to stay with me, and I'm sure with people who are watching this. So thank you again, Shri. So thank you everyone for watching this. And if this resonates, come visit us at ediso.ai, where experts step in when things get complex and help you learn and apply your new skills. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anvi.
So